Good morning, everyone. Today I'd like to introduce you to someone, and let's call this person Steve. And Steve, I've noticed, has a pretty unfortunate habit of making people feel uncomfortable. So for example, the other day he passed a man talking about his brand new, super expensive car that he just bought and absolutely loves. And Steve can't help but point out how bad this particular model is for the environment, which understandably makes this man feel a little bit uncomfortable and kind of guilty about his purchase. Later on, he passes someone coming out of an interview, and Steve just has to ask, well, what if that didn't go well? You spent all that time preparing, and do you think you even got the job? Which again, understandably, makes him feel a little bit uncomfortable. And then finally, there's a woman who's just trying to do her grocery shopping, and she's trying to decide between her two favorite cereals. She makes her decision, but then she encounters Steve, and feels a little bit torn, and starts to question whether she made the right decision at all. So at this point, you're probably wondering, what is up with this guy? Is he just brutally honest, kind of judgy, or is he just straight up a bad person? Well, no, he's just cognitive dissonance. And so, what do I mean by that? What is cognitive dissonance? Well, cognitive dissonance occurs when we experience a discrepancy between our attitudes and our behaviors. And this leads to an uncomfortable or even guilty feeling, and we call that dissonance. And in order to make this feeling go away, we can either change our attitudes or we can change our behaviors. But we actually find it quite difficult to change a well-established behavior, and in some cases, the opportunity to change it has actually already passed. And so what we're left with is changing our attitude. In order to do this, we have two main options. We can either focus on the benefits of the situation or acquire new information that outweighs our original belief, or we can downplay the negatives and kind of make the situation seem less bad than it actually is. So if you think back to the man with his car, he now knows that his car isn't good for the environment, but he's also not willing to give it up. So what can he do to reduce the ensuing dissonance? He can either focus on the benefits of the situation, maybe this car is particularly safe in the back seat for his children, or he can downplay the negatives. Maybe he only plans to use this car for short trips, so in that case, how bad for the environment can it really be? So now, what are some things that tend to produce dissonance in general? Well, when we spend a lot of time on something, or we've put a lot of effort into it, and the outcome isn't quite what we expected, or it doesn't go well, this produces dissonance, and I'm sure we've all felt this. So in this case, we reduce dissonance through something known as effort justification. And in this situation, no matter what the outcome is, we re-weight our opinion of the situation to make it seem like it was worthwhile, or that was the outcome that we wanted all along. So if you think about the man in his interview, he's now started to question, was all the time I spent preparing for this worth it? So what he can tell himself is, well, we got the job interview experience, and maybe I got my resume updated. So no matter what, it was a worthwhile experience. Okay. So another thing that tends to produce dissonance is decision-making, especially when we're deciding between two attractive options. And this can be seen in something as mundane as grocery shopping, or something bigger, such as you've been offered a job promotion in another province. And in order to accept that offer, you'll be losing out on something really great where you currently live. So how do we justify whatever decision we make in this case? Well, studies have shown that after we make our decision, we actually re-weight the options in our mind so that the one we picked seems more attractive, regardless of what our original opinions were. And so as I've kind of alluded to, we experience cognitive dissonance in our everyday lives. We talked about decision-making, but it also shows up in problem-solving and even our interactions with others. And it can actually also help to explain some certain negative outcomes. So say the propagation of a certain habit. If someone is a smoker, but they also know that it's bad for their health, they'll be more likely and they'll find it more easy to change their attitude and think that it's not actually as bad for them as it is instead of stopping smoking. And it can also help to explain why someone might stay in a bad relationship, especially if it's long-term. They've invested a lot of time and effort into this person, and they'll find it hard to call it quits. So now, I've kind of made it seem like it's all bad, but reducing cognitive dissonance can actually lead to positive changes in attitude or behavior as well. So our friend Steve isn't inherently a good or bad person, and cognitive dissonance isn't a good or bad thing. It's just an everyday part of life, and we have to be aware of it. So what we need to realize is how it might be affecting the decisions that we make every day, and also ensure that the justifications we make in order to reduce cognitive dissonance are rational and are leading to positive outcomes. Thank you.